Jordan Moore, Sean Cody, Max Brown, and John Jackson jumping in here. And we'll talk to JJ at the end of the show, too, and sort of break down what we saw on Saturday. But, just sort of a reaction. I mean, all of this happened very fast. The news came this afternoon, and it was great that Mike Bohn and Dante Williams were able to spend some time with us because they have a lot to do. But, your guys' sort of first reaction, when you heard the news this afternoon.
USC is never short of news. I mean, that was my first reaction. Is never short of something.
Always in headlines.
Never something short to talk about here at USC. But players and coaches know the business of football. Yeah, the business of football is winning games, and Coach Clay knows that. And when you lose one at home like that, a conference opener at home, a lot of chatter started, and that's just part of the business. Players know the deal. When I've been on bad teams and waiting to get that call to maybe Sean, that's your last game. That was a bad game, kid. So I mean, players and coaches know what's going on, and I think when I saw it was Coach Dante Williams getting the gig, I was excited for that. I think he brings a lot to this team. I know the players on this team respect him. I know he deals with recruiting a lot, so I think this is a good chance for him to really audition for his I'm sure aspirations as a head coach. Maybe one day, one day in the future, maybe closer. So just a lot of thoughts going through your head, and a lot of positive things, and where we need to find out some things. So a lot of things were going through my head, Max, is what I'm trying to say.
No, totally, and I relate to the players. I mean, I alluded to it in my question to Dante, but I went through something similar in 13 and 15 with those coaching changes, and that's an emotional meeting up there when you have guys that have invested in Clay and been recruited by him and have been, it's been a cornerstone of their college football experience. You have new guys on the other side that all they know is, Clay Helton, and this is all brand new to them, and their college football world's getting shocked a little bit. So I have empathy for those guys, and I think that's why I understand why the timing was what it was, because we sensed it back in the day, as the season goes on, there can be a cloud that forms around when every headline is maybe related to the uncertainty at that position. So you make the change, and it's still a talented team up there that has the entire season ahead of them and can make some noise. But I have empathy for the players tonight. It's not an easy thing, no matter whether you're a redshirt senior, where you're fresh on campus. Not easy for anyone.
JJ?
Yeah, I look at this at a couple different angles. Is my dad was a coach, so it's not easy for me just to see him lose his job. First of all,
people's lives.
I mean, people got to remember, imagine going to work and losing your job. No matter, I don't care where you work. You can work in the grocery store,
right.
But when your livelihood is taken away, that is not an easy thing. And if my dad would have came home and said, "Guess what? By the way, I'm not coaching anymore. I don't have a job. We're stuck." It would have been a whole different lifestyle in my household. So it's a tough thing for me. I mean, I think that you have to empathize for Clay. Me being a parent, I can tell you what, it's a tough thing because Clay, we've invested in Clay Helton for what he brought. He really does look out for the wellness of the kids. I know people will criticize that and say, but it's different when you're the parent. Yep. I can tell you from experience. And that's one thing he did do is he was a father to these kids in whatever sense of form you want to put it, and that made it easy for me to send my kid here. It makes me feel comfort at night when I put my head on the pillow that my kid is safe and, they're doing the right things for his well-being and his safety and all that kind of stuff, despite, anything else, off the field or on the field, I know that he's in good hands. How about that? And
we've seen that from an outpouring of emotion from his former players today and some of his current players as well. Max, you are a unique person actually to have on here. I thought about you today when we were prepping for this show because what you saw and certainly what I've experienced during my time here at USC is the sort of interim coach bump you can get too. And there's so much season left. The two that we experienced from different angles sort of came more mid-season, right around that at Notre Dame game. They came on odd years, just like this. But there's a great opportunity to rally together emotionally, and we saw it successfully.
Just one quick thing. I mean, how about Mike Bohn, though? You have to give him a lot of credit as well. This is not an easy thing for him in terms of, having to get rid of a coach. I mean, of course, there's a lot of people yelling, get rid of the coach, and we hear all that. But who do you pick? I mean, he could have picked amongst any of coaches. But he went with Dante Williams, which of course is let's just face the facts. He's a black coach, and a black coach as head coach is not popular in any football, in any,
well, it's the first
or
time
even Pop Warner football.
First time in program history. So I mean, it certainly is a piece of history too when he takes the field on Saturday. Go ahead, Max.
But yeah, to your point, it certainly is a huge rallying call. I know we both years in 13 and 15, we were playing every single week to back our new head coach, and there's no secret. Dante Williams is maybe the best recruiter on the West Coast. You better believe he's going to have that team bought into the message, to the vision, and our situation was unique only because you had 5 or 6 games because it was only the back end of the season, so you had to convince yourself that it really was a second season. This really feels like an entire new season, having only 1 conference game under the belt, 10 games more ahead, but you better believe Dante's going to have those boys rallied and bought into the new vision ahead.
And Jordan, I think I give Mike Bone credit just for getting this thing kind of going. Some places could have sat back and relaxed and let this thing ride through. Then you're trying to find a coach, you're in a scramble, and with recruiting the way it is now sooner and with the sooner dates, I think that this shows that the full buy-in to playing good football and right away. And it's not you could have sat back and relaxed and let this thing kind of play out. But hey, we're being aggressive with it. Let's push forward what we got and finish off this year strong, and then find what we got.
A sense of urgency to it. Yep, and I think the fans wanted that, felt that, and I think it's a good response in that regard. Certainly. We'll bring JJ back here in a few minutes, and we'll get into more of this and sort of look forward a little bit more, look back at the Stanford game, and then forward to sort of see how this team performs on the field. Interesting night on Trojans Live. Jordan Moore, Sean Cody, Max Brown, John Jackson back with you, and that certainly made this show more interesting, guys. I was, walking out of the Coliseum Saturday, I was thinking, boy, it's gonna be a long hour on Monday night. And it's rough in its own way, but anytime you sort of get this fresh start, it's a fresh start for everybody, and it's interesting to see how it's going to play out now, certainly. I guess the easiest way to say it, if you were to sort of triage this team after what we saw on Saturday, what's the first thing that needs to be fixed? Because Dante Williams doesn't have time to fix 30 different things in 3 days. So JJ, start with you, man. What's the first thing to fix?
They got to be physical up front. I mean, I think they have to be more physical up front on both sides of the ball. Stanford was good, but I didn't think they were. I mean, they're good up front usually. I mean, that's sort of their reputation. But I mean, they dominated us up front, and you can't get dominated like that.
I think you got to let Graham be Graham, and have this offense find an identity. And for me, we've been seeing more of that 12 personnel. But we never saw that before Graham got here, and so I'm curious moving forward Sean, I thought you put it perfect on the air on Saturday in terms of it was very tough, and this offense is supposed to be open in space. It's supposed to stretch every blade of grass on the field. You don't really get that sense so far this season. So now there's only one cook in the kitchen, so to speak. I'm excited to see where this offense goes from here with all the talented receivers they have, and get back to those explosive ways that we've seen the past couple of years.
Yeah, I think that's offensively where I was going to go, but defensively, I think it's got to start with a pass rush that needs to be a little more relentless. I think you see on Saturday the DBs had a tough time with penalties and coverage, and but a lot of that can be remedied sometimes by just a great pass rush. And when you have a Drake Jackson and a Tuli Tuipulotu, a Nick Figueroa, who's kind of banged up, but these guys got to put. I want relentless pressure. I don't love when Drake Jackson's falling back into coverage. I want my 99 on the edge, and I want him coming every time. I don't want it a sometimes thing. I don't want to, line it up in different. Let's get him going and get him in the street because he needs to be a dominant player, I think, on the defense. That's
what Stanford can do to you, though. If you fall behind Stanford, they'll max protect. They'll run, so you can't just pin your ears back. I mean, that's sort of the beauty of playing the football, the way they play it.
Jordan, you said it a week ago. You asked a question a week ago. What are you going to do to show some variety in this offense in terms of, ball distribution or whatever? Yeah. Who's going to be the go-to guy if you can't get it to Drake? Well, they couldn't get it to Drake, and guess what? Here we are with a brand new head coach.
Yeah, and Max, it was your key going into the game as well. They certainly did not solve that conundrum yet.
Yeah, the question has now moved to a concern. I heard you like that you like that line, but it's weird because coming out of fall camp, there was tons of optimism with the receiver group. There's guys in that room that can play, that can produce, that they have confidence in, and so I'm excited moving forward of hopefully getting back to that. And you sense that Keaton's taking maybe a little bit of the heat in terms of the media and whatnot. That's a special player right there you have behind center. Excited for him to showcase that, and hopefully this allows like you said, everyone to have a fresh start, new lease on your football life, so to speak, and a lot of games ahead for sure.
And I saw a switch, I thought, in Keaton too. In the first half, the offense looked lackadaisical and not really sharp. It didn't look like motivated, but I definitely saw a switch in the second half with Keaton. He came out, it seemed more precise, it seemed like strikes, it seemed like I'm stepping into this, I'm not second guessing myself, I'm just going to go get it. And I want to see that from the onset, not something you got to tell him to do. Let's get that thing going from the beginning.
I mean, we're getting ready to play Washington State this week, and we all know when Washington State is successful or when they're threatening is because the ball is going to any one of those four receivers. You just don't know where it's going, and that's when they're at their best. And if USC is going to stay in this four-receiver offense with and try to spread it, they're going to have to spread the ball out and get it to everybody. Next, we'll be talking about the tight end.
Well, and that is the sort of back and forth of everyone was claiming, we want more tight end, and then what happens? The offense.
So they wanted the high formation too.
Yeah. I mean, so you can't listen to all that noise. I am, the conversation we've been having though for 3 years, really since the BYU game of 2019. Again, it does seem like everyone's playing this offense the same way, Max. Is that what you're seeing even from Stanford? Because 2 years ago against Stanford, they lit that Stanford defense up. But to me, again, it looked like keep everything in front of us. USC never got behind the defense once all night.
Yeah, and we've talked about the run game all the time in terms of drop eight, got to be able to run. Drop eight, got to be able to run. But to your Washington State reference coming up, when Leach would get drop eight, they would still find a way to throw the ball 55 times a game because they're finding those zones in those pockets, and they're trained to put pressure sideline to sideline, both vertically and short, and they're still finding the window. So you can still throw the ball, but I do think there's a sense of, hey, if they are going to drop eight, then offensive line, let's be that next level of physicality. Let's not just get the 3 or 4 down linemen. Let's work up to the linebackers and the undersized nickel back over there and punish them and turn, 3 or 4 yard runs where the defense is just kind of hanging on. Turn those yards into 8, 9, 10-yard gashes. Like that should be a mindset if you're an offensive line, not just getting away with the run, but punishing teams for lining up and drop eight. There's a reason most teams don't do that, but so far in this era, we haven't been able to punish it on a consistent basis.
And I think this game is challenging multiple facets. I don't think Washington State is an elite team by any means, but the challenge is coming from SC internally, right? Yes. You have this tough coaching change taking place. You have a short week to work with your new coach. You're coming off a game where not only did you not play good in X's and O's wise execution, you look like you might have shut it down a little bit. And that's the concerning part for me is how do you get those guys, if you're Dante Williams, turn that thing back up for a new time? Let's start this thing fresh. Let's get it going. And that's where I think the challenge in this game lies. Not your opponent, but it's yourself.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, come back and wrap things up. You're listening to Trojans Live.